Praise be Jesus Christ and Mary Immaculate. Welcome to this homily for the 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time. We're going to read from the Gospel of Luke. Today the Gospel gives us a simple but yet profound request that the disciples make to Jesus. Increase our faith. What did Jesus say or do that make them think that they needed extra help, extra grace, for their faith to be increased, that they needed an upgrade in faith? It doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes right after Jesus has spoken about forgiveness. Just a few verses before, Jesus has spoken about forgiveness and the capacity to forgive that all of us need to have. He said, if your brother sins and then repents, you must forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in one day, and 7 times your brother or your sister comes to you and saying, I repent, you must forgive them. And of course, we have there St. Peter, who wanted to impress Jesus and say, is it okay? That means I have to forgive him 7 times? And Jesus says, not just 7 times, but I tell you 70 times 7. And that is when the disciples said, we need extra help. Increase our faith. Increase our faith. And Jesus answers with a surprising image. You don't need more faith. Jesus says, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Now, a mustard seed, if you've ever seen a mustard seed, it's so tiny that if you only had one mustard seed in your hand, you probably would miss it. It would probably easily fall off. You would probably blow it off away. You probably miss it because it is so tiny, it's so small. It's insignificant. And Jesus is saying, even if you had faith that seemed insignificant, it's enough. It's enough to do. One mustard seed is almost nothing. And yet Jesus says that even faith that small is enough to accomplish the impossible. And why a mulberry tree? Why this specific tree? Because it was well known for its roots. It was well known that even though the tree was standing strong, its roots could be hundreds and hundreds of years old, very deep, that even if you cut down the tree and you thought you got rid of the tree, you will never get all of the roots, and it will spring up back up. It will come right back. It will come right back. It was so deep and so strong that even if you cut it down, it would sprout again. Almost impossible to uproot. And yet, just with a mustard seed of faith, even that could be pulled out and thrown into the sea. See the reversal here? See what's happening here? We think that if we see something impossible, we think that if we see something so great that we call a miracle, then our faith will grow. But Jesus teaches the opposite. Jesus teaches that it is faith that makes the miracles happen in the first place. Not seeing to believe, but believing in order to see. We have to be born from above in order to see. Faith opens our eyes and lets us see the reality as God sees reality. And here we touch on something very deep. Within us, there are also roots that we cannot pull out by ourselves. There are certain things that no matter how much Roundup we want to use, we just don't uproot. Things like desires, wounds, sins, old memories that keep resurfacing. And the hardest part is not the world outside. The hardest part is the world of our inside, our ego, our own self, our own self-demands, our own self-expectations. We live in a culture that constantly reinforces this way of thinking, a my way or no way world. A world that tells us that I am the center of it, that everything should revolve around my feelings, my needs, my successes. Just look around. Just look around. So much of our society is built on self-promotion, on self-absorption, on self-entitlement. Advertising tells us that we deserve more. Social media tells us that we should be noticed more, that we should do anything to be noticed. Politics and businesses often reward those who push others aside in order to stand in the spotlight. And slowly, without realizing it, we begin to live as if our own ego is the measure of everything. My comfort, my opinion, my pride. We start to believe that other people exist only to confirm us, to serve us, and to meet our needs. Very entitled. And once that seed is planted, it grows roots. Resentment when we are overlooked. Envy when others succeed. Anger when life doesn't go our way. These are the roots that cling so deeply inside of us, and they keep coming back even when we try to cut them down. We think, I'll try harder, I'll do better. But then the old patterns resurface, the same pride, the same anger, the same selfishness. And Jesus is telling us those roots cannot be pulled out by sheer human effort. Only faith that turns outward, faith that teaches us to trust God, faith that makes us serve instead of demand, only that kind of faith can uproot that kind of selfishness. Faith the size of a mustard seed can do what our own willpower cannot do. And here comes the heart of today's gospel passage, when Jesus says, "When you have done all that you were commanded to do, say, we are unprofitable servants." Some translations say, we are servants without pay, meaning you can't profit off of us because we don't have pay. Others say, we are useless servants. But even someone not very skilled in Greek can see that it could also mean that we are servants without pay. In other words, we don't work for a wage. We don't work for self-profit. And yet others translate it in a way that I find even more striking. We are servants without demands. We have no claims. We have no demands. Think about that. When was the last time somebody approached you without asking you for something in return? When the servant comes back from the field, does the master say, "Come right away and sit at my table"? No. He says, "Prepare my meal." And think about it. Here in the scriptures, every time that Jesus uses a parable where there is a servant and the master is always God. The master is always God. And that's because we have put God in that position. When the master comes back from the field, does the master say, "Come right away and sit at my table"? No. He says, "Prepare my meal, put on your apron, serve me until I have eaten, until I have drank, and afterwards you may eat and drink." And everyone listening at the time of Jesus would have nodded and said, "Yep, that's how it is. That's the way things go." Why? Because the master was the image of God in the gospel. And the master was the image of God that people had invented for themselves and that they still cling to today. A God who must be served first, who demands everything, who takes, and then maybe, if you're good, afterwards you would get your turn. But this is the great deception from the very beginning. The temptation in Genesis 3, we hear it there. It's to substitute the true image of God with a false one. The serpent, who is the tempter, right? The deceiver, the accuser says, "Just do it. Take that fruit, because you will be just like God." And since people thought that God was the one who must always be served, they began to want others to serve them. See, it's a little chain reaction. I serve God and I give everything to God and I sacrifice everything I have for God, because in turn, I will be a little God and someone else is going to obey me. Someone else is going to serve me. Someone else is going to serve me. So I become like a little God. I serve God, but in return, I want something back. I want to be treated like God by those under me. But Jesus pushes even further. You cannot serve two masters. Luke 16:13. You cannot serve God and your own self at the same time. You cannot serve God and your envy or your desires at the same time. And in Mark 10:45, he says, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." This is the turning point. Jesus overturns our idea of God. Not a God who demands service, but a God who comes to serve. Who is greater, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? Surely the one at the table. Yet I am among you as one who serves, says Jesus, Luke 22:27. My friends, God is the servant, and this is the scandal. Christ reveals a God whose very way of being is to serve. That's why he washes the disciples' feet, the most humiliating gesture. This is why he accepts death on a cross. Because God is not the great boss that must be pleased. God is the one who bends down at our table, who takes care of our needs, who turns our restless demands into gifts. He has made of himself a total gift, without claim, without demand, handing himself over entirely into our hands. And this is the revelation. Our God has overturned the logic we had about him. He shows himself as the servant, and in doing so, he teaches us that we too can only fulfill ourselves when we serve others without making demands. God bless you.